So the agenda is quite succinct. It's quite a packed agenda. I'm going to kick off by handing over to Lorraine shortly. So without further ado, Lorraine McMillan, if you want to give us your kind of realising ambitions as a collective and your thoughts and views, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Martyn, and welcome everybody to this meeting. We have got a good agenda this morning. We've got an opportunity to look at what's been happening across councils and partners in digital, and there's some great opportunities to get engaged in as well. I'm always keen that everything that we do is absolutely driven by what councils need, so it's a great opportunity to actually have a look at that and see what's right for your council. So a huge amount of activity showcased this morning that we're working on, and quite a lot of them, there'll be a discussion of what the opportunities are as well. Now, I have been put off by looking at a picture on the screen of Martyn that I think was taken about 20 years ago. Is that right, Martyn? You need to get that picture updated.
That's happening on Friday, thanks, Lorraine.
And I'm not going to comment my picture, which I think's only 5 years old, and I'm keeping it that way. That's going to be me from now on. So my asks from everybody this morning is we have great representation this morning. We've got 98 participants. I'm sure Martyn been quite competitive, is hoping another 2 come on, so he can say there's over 100. But that's only a small number of people from each council. The work of the digital office covers much more than transformation and digital, where and IT, where we started. There are so many other people involved across councils in digital. So please make sure that you're sharing across councils the work of the digital office. Make sure your colleagues in all sorts of parts of the council are joining knowledge hubs and getting involved as much as possible, because if we're rolling out digital, it's about the use of it as much as the technology behind it. So we need lots of people to know what's going on and to quickly learn from other colleagues. We're also at an interesting stage in terms of the digital office, because we're about to renew the business plan. Martyn, Colin and others are working on that at the moment. So this is a good opportunity to influence what is in that business plan. For the last couple of years, we've been responding to COVID and the implications of that. We've also been the team have been also focusing on what can save councils money. So hence a lot of the discussion on procurement, looking at across Microsoft 365, getting access to free training materials that we would have all paid for. So a big focus over the last 2 years in that cost saving, because that's the biggest issue facing councils at the moment. But as we go forward, what's our ambition? All of us are struggling to get staff, which is always an issue, digital office as much as everybody else. And I'm sure you're all having the same, it takes time to recruit at the moment. So what is our ambition going forward? Now, on the agenda today, we'll be discussing shared platforms. How ambitious do we really want to be in that? We had also hoped over the last 2 years to do a bit more in AI and robotics. That's been difficult to resource, but I think it has to be a priority going forward. Artificial intelligence, obviously on the agenda for everybody at the moment, but the negatives of it are more and more coming to the fore. If you saw some work last night about an advisor saying we had only 2 years to sort this. So really important stuff for us all to think about the ethics of AI and the ethics as we move forward. So some big discussions that we need to have as the local government community going forward. So hopefully that's a bit sets the scene today for some of the things that we need to be talking about. My big ask of you is that you help contribute towards what your priorities, your council's priorities are for the next 2 years, to make sure that we are delivering on what councils need. It's also my last meeting as I'm retiring at the start of July, and I'm really pleased to be handing over to Thomas Glenn, who will take over the Solace lead on digital. And I know he'll do a fantastic job. John from Dumfries and Galloway is going to be taking over the lead on digital health and social care and working with Thomas, who's got the overall lead. there is now, as you'll see from the agenda and previous agenda, so much work going on in digital health and social care. It's a huge part of what the digital office does, maybe at least 50% of what we do. And lots and lots of meetings. So I think it's good to have Dawn working in support of Thomas to take that forward at a strategic level. So welcome both Thomas. I know Thomas is on the meeting. I didn't see if Dawn had managed to get on, but I know Thomas is on. So my great thanks to Thomas for agreeing to take over the portfolio. I don't think I gave him much choice anyway, he will tell you. But he has taken it forward, and I know it's an agenda he's really keen on. So with that, I will listen in for a bit more. I can't stay for the whole meeting, but I'll listen in for a wee bit more. So thank you all for everything you've done. Thank you for the collaboration work that everybody's been doing. It's great to see that amount of collaboration now across local government. So I'm really pleased to see that. But with that, I will sign out and I'll pass back to Martyn. Thanks, Martyn.
Thanks, Lorraine. And I think just the opportunity to say on behalf of the team, thanks to yourself for bringing the concept of the digital office to life 6.5 years ago, bringing us together. And thanks to Thomas and Dawn for picking up the torch and taking us to the next stage. So thanks very much. I will be at your leaving due to make sure you are definitely retiring. Thomas, I think you can come with me just to make sure this role is being passed over as well in a couple of weeks. So thank you for that. So you said, we did. So following on from the last partnership forum, we recognise that the role of the digital office is, significantly evolving and changing as the complex landscape we are working on also changes at the same time. Collectively, we explore challenges and potential solutions, helping us understand the importance of co-creating products and services based on your wants and needs, in turn serving the public by meeting their expectations of local authorities. Lorraine's covered some of the great work we've done, working with 11 councils to save them just shy of £1 million in savings from Microsoft 365, working with other councils on the winter pressure stuff to that next stage for collaboration between health and care professionals, and spinning up conversations with Police Scotland to have them come in for using Microsoft Teams for sharing information and collaborating in multifunction team assets. We've got data community working together just now with different blueprints, same with IoT, and working with Census as a partner as well to look at how do we, effectively accelerate the adoption of IoT, #beyond the bin, as I keep saying, with IoT bins and smart bins to actually other uses within our communities and councils. We've listened to your inputs, we've taken on board your feedback, and we've introduced some new ways of working, as well as introducing various supporting resources and materials such as the products and services catalogue, which is now live, and you can see exactly what we're doing across the digital office, what we're collaborating with, what other products and services are available, and what you can actually contribute to as well. A way of ensuring we continually engage with you and understand your challenges, encourage cultures of innovation and celebrate your success is obviously through the redesign of the digital maturity assessment model, which is now very much online rather than having the face-to-face interviews, which took a lot of time to assess and go through the results, which took a lot of time at the team to do on your behalf. So we've streamlined that yet again, and again we're still going through. There's still 5 of you which haven't gone through digital maturity assessment, so please have a chat with us, because some of the councils have gone through their second one now, and we want to make sure that everybody gets access to the information that we do, exemplify the gold standards that a lot of you have done through innovation yourselves, and then help you with other kind of matching, almost like a blind date, where we match up the different opportunities that other councils are doing with yourselves to make sure we all accelerate together. By adapting processes, aligning local authorities' business continuity planning, embedding service design approaches and principles, we have a model that can influence work streams and support delivery of products and services to help you with that digital evolvement of your transformation. We're focusing on vision and strategy, research and analysis, digital skills and workforce, data technology, and capacity for change. This is also mirrored in the themes of today in the Partnership Forum, but throughout ongoing conversations and analysis, we, from workshops and the interactions we have through account management, this is how we'll be working to co-create products and services from now and into the future as well. As Lorraine mentioned, AI is starting to kind of bubble up. There's obviously the big razzmatazz of ChatGPT recently, And in Causal Leaders a couple of weeks back, it came up in conversation there as well. So we will be looking at that as part of the business plan for the next 2 years to make sure we start to accelerate the work around about that and re-energise the work that was going on with RPA to that next stage, because I know that all of you are being affected by conversations around about chatbots, ChatGPT, language models, ethics, cybersecurity, etc. So we want to make sure that that's aligned and we can support you nationally with that endeavour. One thing you'll also notice today, we've tweaked our branding. Our fonts, our slide decks and website to make it compliant with accessibility. And I personally want to have a big thank you to Mike Inch and Aberdeenshire Council for supporting us with that, significant piece of work with his lived in experience to make sure we've got something that's succinct, clear, and can actually be accessible to all. Lorraine's already called me out from a black and white photograph of 5 years ago. Thanks, Lorraine. The team ganged up on me and I'm getting a new photograph done on Friday. But you will notice how haggard and grey I look compared to my 5-year photo. I'm not saying that's been working with you or working for you. I'll just leave that there for today, to be honest. And the team also said I was catfishing with that black and white photograph for a long time as well. Another specific example of how we've considered the wider landscape is ensuring the focus of implementation strategy actions and recommendations is digital skills and workforce section of the digital maturity assessment. We've aligned to the digital data and technology capability framework and Scottish Digital Academy learning pathways, which I've seen from awareness, working, practitioner, expert and masterclass. So, we're constantly evolving this and working with SPDS to make sure we've got the actual tools and capabilities and training that's actually required to actually train our own within the councils, because we know, as from personal experience, it's very, very difficult to try and attract new talent into the market, into local government just now, because it's quite competitive out there. Talking of which, I'm going to introduce you to Jamie Wardlaw, the lead specialist in learning and development at the Scottish Digital Academy, who will expand on these pathways and opportunities to upskill. So without further ado, seamless segue, better than this morning. That's maybe controversial. Over to Jamie.
Thank you very much, Martyn. I hope you don't mind as well. I'm going to do maybe a minor sell of the Scottish Digital Academy while on call today. Let me just share my screen here first. So first off, you'll realise that I am not Lee Dunn. He is the head of the Scottish Digital Academy. Unfortunately, could not be here today. So you have myself, as Martyn said, my name is Jamie Wardlaw. I've been a lead specialist with the SDA now for just over a year and a half. I focus predominantly on their Agile core kind of offer. I do courses on mindset, Scrum, user store mapping, etc., etc., etc. However, my other main lead is the pathways work. But before we get that, I just want to give you a little background for those who haven't maybe heard of the Scottish Digital Academy before. Now, the Scottish Digital Academy is part of People, Strategy and Corporate Services within the Digital Directorate of the Scottish Government, and we have also now merged with DDA, or the Digital Data and Technology team. We provide, hopefully, high-quality professional learning and training to support the development of digital skills across the public and third sectors in Scotland. So in a time of significant complex change in the world with everything going on, we recognise that obviously digital skills are needed at every level of an organisation and across all job roles and grades. So the future of Scotland in a thriving digital nation, as illustrated in the digital strategy, relies on people being equipped, hopefully, with the best possible learning experiences that empowers them to do their job effectively and with confidence. And we know that we need to build on any skill gaps within government and support colleagues to continually improve. Now, our courses, and I'll quickly change this, obviously stealing slides off my gaffer as well, just to make things a little bit easier. Cover that. I don't want to go too much into our thematic priorities today to bore you. He's absolutely rigid. I do that enough in my courses. Now, our courses and programmes are aimed at anybody working in the public or third sector in Scotland, as well as those working within the DDAT profession. Typically, our courses support digital skills, leadership, agile transformation, and service design. I'll show you a few of these at the end, and specifically revolving around the pathways work. We also have agile coaches and lead specialists to provide a coaching service for organisations beginning, continuing their transformation journey, so they can maximise that positive impact that our interventions will hopefully have for the people of Scotland. Now, as Martyn said, our courses are also aligned against the DDAT capability framework. Therefore, they have their 4 progressive levels. These are some of our core offer, which is actually free as well on the website. So please have a wee look afterwards. But the capability framework stuff. So let's obviously try and focus on the pathways. We're going too many tangents today. Now, the different levels we have from the capability framework. We have that awareness, that introductory, aimed at those kind of new to a particular skill. The working level, which is more aimed at those upskilling within their daily role. Obviously, each of these job roles, I think there's 50 in the DDAT capability framework, are all broken down, and there are specific skills within each of these careers. However, generically for our courses, this is kind of a general explanation. Apologies. Practitioners, more of that advanced level, and then expert, more aimed at those in strategic roles. We have added on the masterclass because we recognise that learning doesn't stop, and we understand the requirement for this continuous development, and those are offered to our alumni network and wider community. And then we have added aligned these to our pathways. Now, this was the first pathway that was born, I think, last September, and we did it around product management. Sorry, not product management, the product manager role. Now, the reason we did it around the product manager role was we did an audit of skills last year, and we saw that there were gaps within delivery managers, business analysts, product managers. So we focused on those areas to create these first 3 career pathways around the product manager, the business analyst, and delivery manager. Now, also, I should state as well, for those that haven't seen our pathways before, this is to be learning that everybody can take advantage of at your own pace, at their own levels of knowledge and learning, and to be able to tailor your own training where you see fit, depending on your skills or your role, without duplication or repetition, hopefully, as well as that overarching progressive endpoint towards a future role at all times along these kind of career pathways. Now, as well as the career pathways, they have morphed into learning pathways, and we have now just created a data and analytics pathway, a leadership pathway, and a service design pathway. So I actually want to show you those on the website just because it's the easiest option. So this is our data and analytics pathway on our website. Now you can see the levels aligned. We have the beginning, these awareness courses, and then moving its way pathway to the working, to the practitioner, and then to that expert level. Now you can join these wherever you see fit. Again, it is all to be at your own leisure and your own skills, based on where you feel you fit. If you feel you fit in that awareness, that working, they are broken down, and we will involve or add the skills from the DDAT framework within the courses as well to give you more explanation, be able to pick easier. Now, we want to, now that we're working across the DDAT and Digital Directorate, we will hopefully have owners of pathways to assist in the development of things going forward. We're looking to identify owners in the pathways through these DDAT professions. This is so that we have SMEs or subject matter experts who can actually iterate on these courses and skills in a much better manner than we can. For instance, the data pathway I've been recently created, I've been working closely with senior statisticians and Sean and Nicole from Data Standards. Lee is talking to technical specialists within the cloud, working around creating cloud pathways, data pathways, tech architecture pathways as well. Our plan is 100% to invest in career and learning pathways as they are on our strategic plan for the next 2 years. And I want to cover as well one of these pathways, the leadership pathway. So this is our leadership pathway. Hopefully you can all see that nice and easy. We are limited by the web app we have, unfortunately, through WordPress, but the way is it progresses along, and then we have courses below where we think that if you believe you'd like to have that kind of same level of working, it's not that you have to do all these in one linear way. You can do them in any way which you see fits best. Now, the leadership pathway, to give a general idea, is designed to provide you with a comprehensive understanding of leadership, from the fundamentals to the latest trends and practices. You'll learn how to develop your own leadership style, build high-performing teams, and lead with integrity, hopefully. Throughout that pathway, through all the courses, you'll work with industry experts and fellow course goers to develop practical solutions that meet the needs of your clients, your users, your teams, your colleagues. You also have access to a range of resources, support, and mentorship. And then by the end of that leadership pathway, you should then hopefully have a portfolio of work that showcases your skills and demonstrates your ability to lead with impact and inspire others to achieve hopefully their full potential. And with this knowledge experience, you'll be well positioned to succeed in any leadership role, we believe, and make positive impact in the world. That's a big ask. But those are our pathways. We want to add and iterate on these pathways. Currently, we only have 6. We have our delivery manager, our business analyst, product manager, service design, data and analytics, and the leadership. Again, it's within our strategic plan to add to these pathways because we recognize that we need that progressive learning point for colleagues learning in government and public sector. So hopefully you'll see more in this space. I am the lead on pathways, so if anybody would like to get involved or is interested or wants to know more, please, I'm always here to talk or chat or come to forums like this. Thank you very much, Verity, for the ask. And that is basically it. Hopefully I've covered that in enough in that 10-minute session there, but I'm here for questions as well, if there are any questions as well, Martyn.
Yeah, of course. So thanks, Jamie, for attending today and being part of the team, and obviously working with Verity and the rest of the community on the digital skills and pathways. Is there any questions for Jamie at the moment? Anybody want to raise their hand or put anything into the chat at the side? Jane, you're up first.
Morning, thanks very much. Jane Fowler, Argyll and Bute Council, and I've got a responsibility that spans across HR, IT, customer services and comms. I've taken part in the digital leadership course that the Scottish Digital Academy has delivered, and it does require a lot of input, but really, really valuable course. One of the things that Martyn had been talking and mentioned, the work with SPDS, which is the Society of Personnel Development Scotland, which is heads of HR essentially across local government. And some of the conversations we've been having are about leadership at that very, very strategic level. So not technical leadership, not team leadership, not even service leadership, but our leaders across local government have got fundamental changes that they will need to absorb and think about and understand in order to make fundamental changes to the way that we deliver services. And a recent digital masterclass digital leadership alumni event, I think it was Lee that said very specific, or it might have been Jeff Huggins, said very specifically, if in the public sector in Scotland, we do not transform faster and better to digital, we are not going to survive in the current shape and form that we are because of the ongoing pressures of increased demand and reducing revenue budgets. So really keen, I think I'm just basically saying that on behalf of kind of heads of HR and sort of service leaders in ICT, really keen to do what we can to work with you across SLGDO, obviously with Verity and with yourselves in the Scottish Digital Academy, to help to shape how our leaders around our chief executives and our political leaders can help to shape that pathway in the future. So Lorraine, really delighted that for the leadership that you've given us from Solace in this portfolio, and just like to say thanks very much for all your support to us in SPDS. But I think it's an interesting place for us to explore and a really important role for us to play to support our leaders into the future. Thanks.
Thanks, Jane. I'd love to get you along to write all our intros for the courses. That sounds fantastic. Yeah, completely agree. And in the landscape right now, it's already been mentioned, but I think the big one will be even including AI courses within these kind of leadership pathways as well, hopefully. But thank you for your comment, Jane, and glad you enjoyed the leadership. I'll pass it on to Lee too.
Just an aside, Jamie and Verity Co have been on the course that Digital Health and Care trying to put together for leaders, but I think I'll pick up separately because there's something there that could actually be used for what Jane's looking for as well. In that space, it's far too long at the moment, but I'll pick up separately with you. But there's something there that could be used for that and make it relative. So I'll catch up with you separately on that one. Is there any other questions for Jamie, or is he getting off lately?
This is brilliant. Yeah.
No? All right.
Thanks,
Jamie. Thanks for coming.
You're
Thanks
very
for this
welcome.
morning. So next section is going to be the big idea. So we're carrying on the theme around about digital skills and learning. So as well as showcasing some of the digital transformation initiatives today, we'd like to inspire with reference to some possible big ideas we've got on the back of stuff we've already learned from for things like collaborative procurements, etc., with Microsoft Shared Alarm Receiving Centre with Telecare, and the endeavour we've got on Managed Security Operations Centre shortly. So I will now hand over to Verity to explore the possibility of a national training platform. So Verity, up to yourself.
Hi everyone, so I'm Verity Hislop, the Senior Project Manager for Digital Leadership and Skills Portfolio, and Jane, thank you so much for that, because this is in keeping with the theme of that almost radical change. So we're continually sort of working with everyone in the partnership and continually scanning the horizon to see what the opportunities are there, how we can work more effectively and trying to avoid unnecessary duplication. But at the same time, considering how we can support everyone with scalable solutions. And one of those ideas is around a national training platform. Next slide, please, Kyle. So a lot of you will have been in touch with me or aware of some mapping work that's been going on. But the reason behind this is obviously we have the digital strategy. And if we look at the actions around people in place within digital education and skills, we've got sort of 4 points in there about building a skilled digital workforce, supporting upskilling and reskilling opportunities, increasing diversity in digital skills pool, and establishing the Scottish Digital Academy as the skills provider of choice. Hence why we've now aligned with the pathways that are there and the signposting to them with regards to supporting us with upskilling. Now, if we looked at this and the potential of a national training platform, there are significant benefits. So we're all talking about the challenges we face around financial difficulties. You know, it's the time efficiencies as well, the cost savings, capability and capacity building. You know, how do you actually fit that in with the day-to-day runnings of priorities, and then resourcing that effectively. Next slide, please, Kyle. So at the minute, there has been significant mapping work. So we're very much in that research phase where we have reached out to each of you, and this has been led quite significantly via SPDS as well, where we've been mapping existing learning management systems that are in place. So we've reached out to you all. We've been asking about sort of the product or the system you're using, you know, your supplier, contract duration, the cost, and how many licenses, and at the same, you know, who's your HR OD lead contact. What this allows us to do is we can look at a cost value proposition of the model we have at the minute. So reviewing sort of the current commercial model, the cost you're getting, you know, exploring sort of the possibilities around this joint and mass procurement. You know, potential. The Viva suite is an area that we've had a look at as well, and then obviously testing what those possibilities are. Next slide, please, Kyle. So at the minute, we have each council who have their learning management system model in place, and they have contract. And each of us, what's been identified from the mapping, there's significant differences in cost versus user licenses and the content that you actually get. So you can see from those models, that's taken a generic. You have your sort of your LMS, you know, your custom learning content. Edinburgh City Council, use an example there with Thrive and Meta Compliance feeding into that. So we have, there's 32 versions of it, but not necessarily 32 different suppliers, but there are very much 32 different commercial models and variations around about that. Next slide, please, Kyle. So if we were looking at things, and this is, you know, hypothetically, if we're saying, okay, right, if we went to one learning management system, a centralised resource of upskilling and learning, I'm taking the Digital Academy as the example there, as indicated in the strategy. And we then have 32 local authorities that have individual sign-in into that system, and we can then what it allows us to do is basically, rather than the onus being on the council and the supplier on developing content individually in little pockets, and it takes a considerable amount of employees to be able to do this and continually adapt considering the pace of change, we can look at that as a collective, naturally creating working groups and steering group and sharing that content, and that's what we need to look at the minute and explore the possibilities around about that. What it would also mean that is, if we were looking at one unique user sign-in or logging, if individuals were moving around the public sector and there was mandatory training, for example, if I was at a council, I just completed my mandatory training, I move on to another council, that learning journey would go with me. And if my mandatory training was valid for 3 years, then that at the same time, that 3 years, I wouldn't need to then go in and reset that straight away. So we're trying to cut out that downtime and that continual learning pathway for individuals, so that's not all lost. Next slide, please, Kyle. So at the minute, I'm happy to share all the mapping we have if anyone is unfamiliar with the works and wants to see what's happening, because we have everything there, and as well as sort of the cost value proposition with regards to everything at play and potential. So very much in that research phase at the minute, as I was saying. So, you know, that mapping around everything that's there. Where are we? What are we working with? But it's really important at the same time we consider sort of the risks or the challenges or those sort of elements where there are questions around how that will work, you know, and take everything into consideration. So the way we're doing that is to work with you all. You know, it's that transparent approach from start to finish where we co-create that solution or what that potential might look like together. Now, we appreciate it's not going to be an overnight fix. It's not something everybody's just going to move to straight away. It would be much more an incremental approach to that, and that more sort of stagnant, you know, approach to introducing things gradually and building up that confidence, which is a big piece of everything that's there. So as part of that research, you know, there's that the mapping initially, the skills appraisal, the business case, and obviously reviewing sort of the current commercial models that are at play. So thank you to everyone who have inputted into that so far, because it's really important we have everyone that is contributing. So that's a true sort of overview of where we are and where we're going. The next sort of steps we're moving on to, and again, this is with SPDS and all of you involved on that side, would be sort of a benefits workshop, exploring that, some mapping sessions, really focusing on the potential for local government, you know, and that's what it's coming back to, that co-design, and the same to consider sort of existing licenses, what's at play, what are the additional products that could be fed into there, you know, Viva Suite, additional content, Power BI, you know, what does that look like? And then redevelop that cost value proposition with the business case to go forward. And then it's a case of exploring, when we get to that point, technical, you know, specifications, the testing, you know, single user sign-in, accessibility and usability for all. So without further ado, that's been done already. That was quick going. But I'll pass you back to Martyn, and thank you, and happy to take any questions if there's any.
So obviously one of the key objectives in the Digital Scotland strategy is around about common solutions, and this is obviously a massive opportunity to actually utilise that, sharing the costs, sharing the benefit, and sharing content more importantly, which will then save time and cost for getting the skill stuff. I think as an aside, in terms of sharing content, one thing we didn't mention but Jamie earlier on is the Digital Academy and Digital Office combined together with Perth and Kinross Council to support them in developing their data essentials piece of training work to make it national across the whole of public sector. So there is opportunities here for, you know, creating that, finding the content and co-creating that content to make it even better, to be shared across all councils, if not the whole of public sector. So I'm going to shut up if there's any questions for Verity on what she's just presented at all. Come on, you can't let her off the hook that lightly. That's not fair.
They're all so used to me badgering them all the time for information that, and they don't have any.
Okay, if there's no questions then, we're going to move into our first comfort break for 5 minutes. If you want to go and grab a coffee, you know, or get some comfort of some sort, we'll be back here and kick off in 10:45. Thank you very much. Okay, I think we'll kick off just for time's sake. And we've got another break in about, I think, 45 minutes anyway as well, so it should be okay. So, okay, if you can move on the slides. So we're going to move into data and technology section. And I have to admit now, we do actually have other members of the team, because I'm going to hand back to Verity very shortly. There are other people in the team today, but it's over to Verity shortly about, what we're doing in this technology space. So data allows organisations to visualise relationships between what's happening in different locations, departments and systems. Before we can improve current process and make informed business decisions, we must understand where we are now by using real-time intelligence and problem solving. So I will now hand you back to Verity, who will explain a refreshed approach to our data work streams and objectives. So Verity, back to yourself, and please get some questions for this section, please. Verity.
I'm fine if you don't have questions for this section, because I'm not a data expert by any means, but I'm finding my feet. So we've touched upon some of this evolving role, right, with the digital office, and maximising efficiencies is that common theme throughout, okay? And it's how do we re-emphasise the strength and the advantages of what we have, as a partnership. I'm going to refer to data portfolio and explain a bit about what we've been doing recently and working on around sort of a refreshed approach and that real focus on scalable outputs for local authorities. So we have this, next slide please, Kyle. We've reviewed, we've had data squads in place in various groups and people leading within data and input, but as I say, we really want to accelerate that. But one of the ways we want to do that is simplification. Okay, we already work with enough complexity everywhere in what we're doing, and it's how do we make it as simple and clear as possible with minimal objectives, but actually a targeted approach to accomplish everything as the groups in the working groups. So transforming things more. It's moving away more from that community of interest where there's definitely space for that, but actually taking on actions with owners to look at that delivery model. So as you can see here, we have a data advisory group. Now, our data advisory group is a collaboration of all squads. The squads are our health and social care, locality profiling, and open data. Okay, so basically the role of the advisory group is sort of reviewing and finalising content for our SharePoint site, the product and service catalogue, raising awareness around the value of data and that role of a community of interest. And it's also about a collective voice. So it's about open discussions. Where can you come to with challenges or blockers and look at and explore potential, of solutions for data. We have our locality profiling squad, which is led by Nick Cassidy of Improvement Service, and they work identifying a framework for local government, and it's basically sort of around databases for inclusion, standards such as geography and timelines, and they're looking to cover and identifying good practice, and how they share that more widely. We have the Open Data Squad. Now, the Open Data Squad have been on hold for a while because there's been a refresh with regards to the Open Data Strategy. So they're very much engaging at a national level at the minute and working with them to sort of finalise their objectives and looking at the synergies between our health and social care squad and our locality profiling squad. So the model is to emphasise that we no longer work in silos and consider things in isolation, because that's where we then have gaps arising and we have to sort of backtrack. It's moving forward as that collective with each of the squads engaging with each other. We have our health and social care squad, and basically with the health and social care squad, they have representatives across local government. We've got Public Health Scotland, we've got Scottish Government, we've got COSLA, we've got Improvement Service as part of that. They are looking at the context of social care data exchanges. So those exchanges between local authorities and national agencies, and they're looking at how do you enhance the intelligence and insights, for service design and delivery returned to local authorities from Public Health Scotland and others based on national data returns. And that interlinks and feeds into so many other possibilities that are there. But how do we look at that in its simplest form, at the same time not making that mistake to look at something in isolation, but considering the synergies between that. So we have everything that feeds into things as well. So we've got a product and service catalogue squad or group, if you like. Now, that's really the responsibility of everyone. That objective is to create content for the product and service catalogue. So Alex Hamilton is the lead on that squad or that group, if you like, and I'm part of that. And we basically, it's members from councils, it's the digital office team, and it's about driving that content, you know, so working closely with each of the squads, attending their meetings, and scanning the horizon to see what opportunities are there to take forward, mapping the landscape, trying to understand the wants and the needs and the opportunities, and maintain sort of that regular update. So not only the content for that SharePoint site, but the user navigation, you know, the content and the technicalities and the aspects of that. And from that, obviously, we have the strategies that feed into that. We've got the digital maturity assessment with that data and technology part. We've got the data maturity assessment with Scottish Government. We've got all the work from local authorities, and Martyn touched upon that piece with Perth and Kinross. Now, that is something that they had then created that's been identified as something that's scalable and a fundamental piece that can be rolled out for local authorities to access. And then we have a design challenge that we're working on as well, which is that'll give us those insights and feed into that. So next slide, please. What we've done is we've looked at the rescheduling of the meetings. So they were really quite regular, like every fortnight squads were meeting. However, we've revised that a bit at the minute because we want that, as I say, to maximise the time. We appreciate that people are taking the time to attend these meetings, and we want to make that as valuable as possible. So it's coming together and actually collectively working on a challenge or a solution to that challenge and what that would then look like and make that available to others. So we had the advisory group and we just had a meeting there on the 1st, and going forward they will meet once every 6 weeks. That'll be, as I say, an amalgamation of reviewing content, bringing experts in the field to come along and present or speak, and as I say, sort of that collective voice of, okay, we really need to find something that's a solution working towards X, Y and Z. And then we have the health and social care squad who are meeting. They do meet every 2 weeks, and the locality, I'm going to lose my voice, locality profiling squad, but they actually on an ad hoc basis come together. Okay, so they have a commonality at the minute with Public Health Scotland and the LIST team, and they're meeting. So if they have someone coming along to present on that, they're joining forces and regularly catching up. And then we have that next advisory group meeting, so every 6 weeks, just to review progress. We have a Kanban set up. Everyone is able to add and contribute to that Kanban so that, you know, we progress things as that group going forward. And I'm happy to take any questions. We've got David Murdoch, who is the lead of the Health and Social Care Squad, and he's going to talk a bit further about Martyn. I don't know if you want to introduce David.
Yes, I've actually got a question in the chat. Verity, open data squads, any more detail or a website link on the objectives and activities of the open data squads to understand how we might map our activity to their work? And that's from Bill McCleary in Dundee. Yeah. No, I'm happy to share everything. As I say, we've got that mapping, which I can share with everyone from here. Maybe it's an action we take away from this and share with everyone who's attended today. So there's that Miro board. There's the same. There's the Driven by Data team where we have the Kanban. Again, it's open to everyone to contribute to that. You know, you'll see very precisely the immediate objectives that we have mapped there. I'm saying we have 1 or 2 initially. There is a bucket that is full of potential and ideas, but it's about keeping that focus on there and then delivering that to move on to the next things and incorporating that. So yeah, we can share all of that and provide access if individuals are not a member of the Driven by Data team. Hope that's answered your question, Bill. Is there any other questions for Verity? Okay. So I'm going to introduce the next speaker, which is David Murdoch from the Data Programme Manager for Argyll and Bute Council. So welcome, David, who's going to talk about showcasing the CAI number matching.
Thanks, Martyn. Yes, and thanks, Verity, as well. So I'm going to speak about a process that we've introduced in the Health and Social Care Partnership in Argyll and Bute. It's called KI matching, and essentially what that means is using the Community Health Index number from NHS as a single unique person identifier that can be shared across both our health board and social care and social work colleagues, allowing the use of a single community health and social care case management system. So to think about that from the point of view of a strategic context, health and social care partnerships are quite a strange beast in the sense that they're joint working between a local authority and a health board, and that presents a number of challenges, including the fact very different organisational cultures, completely different infrastructure, including IT networks. But when it comes to the delivery of care, it's really important that these two organisations work in an integrated fashion. So working jointly, there is a senior leadership team within the Health and Social Care Partnership, which established a digital health and care programme board. And one of the key planks of the strategy for that board is the operation of a single community health and care system. Now, to give you an idea of how much of a challenge that is, the health board and the local authority have completely different HR systems, different procurement systems, and this is an operation to combine the staff onto a single health and care system, with, crucially, a combined person record. And the reason that's important is, as I say, historically and culturally, the health board tends to refer to the person as being the patient. Local authority refers to them oftentimes as the client, but really we want to think of them as an individual person and not have siloed data in respect of the delivery of their care. And the reason the KI number, the Community Health Index number, is really important is that provides us with that unique identifier that allows us to join together that person record. So how does that work in practice? What we have is obviously we've got the client who has interactions with both council social work and social care staff, but they're also interfacing with the community health teams. So community health, that's as distinct from inpatient care. So these are people like district nurses, allied health professionals such as occupational therapists, physiotherapists, dietitians, etc. And all of that engagement that the person has with care is recorded into a single case management system. And the importance that the KI number has is ensuring that the two aspects of the care are joined up. Because that's really important. What we don't want to end up with is a situation where we've got John Smith and Rothsey, and there are separate records for John Smith. But importantly, we have to disambiguate. There's likely 3 John Smiths and Rothsey, possibly the main, the father, but also his own father, and then perhaps a child. And we have to be able to use the KI number to disambiguate those 3 identities. How the KI matching works in practice is that the case management system sends an out file, which is a file that contains all of the person records that have been added that don't have a KI number. That goes to the Public Health Scotland team called the Chile team or Chile service, which is KI linking and indexing service. And what they do is, based on the information we've given them, they match the missing KI, the KI that we don't have. They put that into the file, return that to us, and then we have a process that writes those KI numbers into the case management system. And a really interesting product of that is that often we'll pick up duplicates. So what might have happened accidentally is that John Smith and Rothsey already existed, but when they engaged with perhaps one of the social care teams, they hadn't initially found them. So they created John Smith as an entirely new record. And then when that data file sends that record that's missing the KI number to PHS, it comes back and says, here's a KI number for this individual. And in our import process, that process of that return file catches the fact, oh, that KI number already exists in the system. So it's a really good and efficient way of eliminating duplicate records as well. Key benefits of this is better experience and outcomes of care. So if given the visibility across all aspects of care. The way the Health and Social Care Partnership works is there are multidisciplinary teams that come together to put together a care package around individuals. And by the fact that those multidisciplinary teams that involve staff from both the local authority and also the health board are all referencing the same system, then that makes everything much more efficient, both for the staff themselves, but also the experience of the individual receiving the care. And this is described actually for more information. This is cited as a case study in the Scottish Government's Health and Social Care Data Strategy that was published in February of this year. So there's more information on it there. I should say that in there it references a system that's going live this year. The history of this is that this is a process we've had running since 2019. But in its initial implementation, it was on an on-premise case management system. The work referred to there is we've migrated it now to the replacement software as a service platform called Eclipse. And so this is, as it were, the second iteration of this solution. Common questions that often arise, were there any rough edges or snags in terms of this implementation? Did we meet any resistance? One of the questions that we were asked when we were involving the staff in the planning of this implementation, there was a concern that with so much information being put onto a single record, might that swamp the teams? So, you know, if I'm a social worker and all of the district nurse engagement is in there, is it going to be hard for me to find the information that's relevant to me? And what we did was we took care to ensure that the system is designed in such a way that there are filters which are in place such that when I approach the person record, I'm seeing the information that's immediately relevant to me, but I can change the filter that broadens it out so that I can see information from the other teams that might be relevant. Another question that often comes up is what are the safeguards in terms of very, very sensitive information, you know, things like criminal justice or domestic violence, that kind of thing. And yes, again, the system, although the intention is to join up the record, the system includes Chinese walls, which separates data and ensures that only people that should have access to certain very sensitive data, only those people have access to it. Another question which sometimes comes up is with the introduction of new CAI, the replacement Community Health Index number, is that going to make this redundant? And the short answer is no. The Public Health Scotland Chile service, CAI linking and indexing, they will take on the role of disseminating the new CAI number in largely the same way as they currently disseminate the existing CAI number. So we don't expect that to be an issue. The work that we're doing here with the digital office is that we have been working with Aberdeen City with a view to Aberdeen City essentially re-implementing this in their case management system. And if we can make that work, then we will document this and publish that through the data playbook, the service catalogue that Verity mentioned earlier. So that's it in overview. Happy to take any questions.
Thanks, David. It's a lot of good work and got a lot of good practice in there as well. Just before I'm opening up for questions, is that Mount Stewart behind you, by the way, David?
It is, yes.
Yes, it is. If you've not been to Rothsay, it's about 5 miles outside Rothsay. It's a phenomenal, gorgeous place. I can highly recommend it for a wee day trip. Not that I'm working for Tourist Board and Argyll and Bute Council, may I add, but it's an absolutely stunning place to go for a visit. So without further ado, any questions for David at all? We're all getting off very lightly today. I don't like this. This is appalling. All right, thank you so much, David, for joining us and sharing the work you've been doing. It's brilliant, and obviously working with Aberdeen City Council as well, which shows in terms of partnership and collaboration, we can do a hell of a lot with this. Colin, thank you, Colin.
Sorry, that was an accident. Sorry.
Oh, was it an accident? All right, okay, right, okay, David, you're off the hook. You're off the hook, my friend. That's fine. That's all right. So thanks, Thomas. Thomas is going to have an accident as well. Thomas.
Oh, Martyn, you were starting to get pleading like, so I thought I'd better come in and ask a question for your benefit as much as anybody else's will be. David, thanks for the presentation. I think it was really interesting for somebody who's relatively new into this whole kind of digital world and trying to develop my understanding. I was aware of some of this stuff, but interested in where you think this can go. in terms of wider sharing, not just between councils and health boards, in particular in relation to our work with young people and some of the challenges we've got around about kind of child protection, work with other agencies. So just where do you think this has got an opportunity to extend into work with other partners, particularly around about that childcare area?
It's a really good question, and it's something that we've looked at in the digital health and care squad as well. The challenge that we have with CAI specifically is that there's a governance board that manages, because it's a unique identifier that everyone in Scotland has, including people who are resettled here. For example, our Ukrainian refugees, they're assigned a temporary CAI at the point that they engage with the health system, and so it's a very personally, literally personally identifiable data. And the CAI board govern who it can be shared with, and there is part of the work that we were doing with Aberdeen City is to replicate the information governance around it, because what we had to do back in 2019 was implement a data sharing agreement between ourselves as a local authority, our health board colleagues in NHS Highland and Public Health Scotland. So the governance around it is extremely robust. But having said that, I think it definitely represents a good way of introducing a unique identifier that can be gives you a very high degree of confidence that you've got the right person. Whether it would be, so for example, could we put it into CMIS, the school management system? It's a conversation that we've kind of kicked around within the health and care squad, but it wouldn't be as easy as it sounds because of this governance piece, but definitely a conversation there to be had.
Before I bring Colin in, I think just to add into that, Thomas, that Monika might touch on this later on as part 2 of the collaboration work with Microsoft 365. There's a lot of work looking at information governance across the piece for sharing of health and health and care records in a more secure way, but also using collaboration tools like Teams to actually do that facilitation. So that I think there's possibly some joint learnings there. From what's been discussed with David and also what's been done with M365 stuff and the Digital Health and Care Directorate, which could add even more value to it as well. Colin, you got your hand up patiently. Sorry, Thomas, do you want to come back in or?
Yeah, just if it's okay, Martyn, and
Yep.
Sorry to cut Colin off, but I guess it just feels that there's an area where there's a lot of conversations going on, because similarly there's conversations going on with DWP in terms of kind of what we're doing around getting the data sharing as well. So it just feels that there's a huge amount in this space, and it's an area which for generations now, for decades, it feels that we were always challenged in terms of getting those data sharing protocols between agencies. So positively, it does seem to be there's some movement. So it sounds like there's plenty of positive kind of stuff in this area just now. So thanks for the update.
Thanks, Thomas. Sorry, Colin.
Yes, part in response to Thomas's question, and also because I felt bad putting my hand up by accident before. So just to highlight that Griffiths from COSLA has suggested that we prepare a paper highlighting this work to Solace, to such is the magnitude and potential of the approaches that David's taken here and Aberdeen are working on currently as well, really to kind of position this and what the benefits are and the implications might be as well. And I think there's some discussion there that's required on how far you go with this. And in terms of data sharing, it may be worth us maybe expanding that paper to look at data sharing a bit more generally as well, Thomas. We are doing a lot of work with Social Security Scotland as well as DWP at the moment, so there's maybe something we could do just to position, kind of elevate those discussions a bit and bring it together. Happy to pick that up with you, Thomas.
Thanks, Colin.
Sympathy questions don't count, Colin, according to Thomas in the chat, but that's okay. Verity, you get your hand back up.
Yeah, just touching upon that as well, and it's true, it's sort of, it's the tip of the iceberg, and there's different things that we're working on that's a spin-off of where we are. So there's the digital front door work that Martyn's obviously involved in that side, and they've been along to the health and social care squad there as well, and exploring sort of that CAI number and CAI matching possibility. But we're working on a couple of things with improvement service as well. We're looking at a child poverty and inclusion event, so that's with the locality squad, and then we've got a workshop and a showcase, if you like, of the work that East Renfrewshire Council have been doing with the Smart Data Foundry and Edinburgh University on the dashboards and how they've used that and collating that, and that's the start or the initiator of some data standards work linking to specific data sets as well. So there's quite a lot happening there, and it's just a case of, you know, if you want to get involved and find out a bit more about that, then you can do, but there will be communications and then coming out about those workshops and those events that you can partake in as well, taking that to the next step.
Cool, thanks, Verity. So if there's no more questions for David, move on to the next section, which is about the Infralink-Exchange Outcomes Project. And I'm delighted that Sarah Eynon, Programme Director for Digital Connectivity at Scottish Futures Trust, joins us this morning to give us an update. So Infralink-Exchange was a Pathfinder project which was awarded funding from UK Government's Department for Digital Culture, Media and Sport to explore how street furniture can be used to greatly enhance mobile digital connectivity. The project was led by Scottish Futures Trust. It was involved with Tay-City's local authorities, Improvement Service, Connected Places, Catapult, Satena, Scotland 5G Centre, Farpoint and the Digital Office, and focuses on how local authorities can improve their engagement with the mobile industry. So without further ado, I'll introduce Sarah Eynon, who will provide an update on the project's outcomes, including the Infralink-Exchange Playbook, which is available to support other local authorities to begin a project that improves mobile connectivity. So welcome, Sarah.
Thanks very much, Martyn, and thanks very much for having me today. It's been great to hear the two previous discussions there, because I think this fits quite neatly into how we use data and our assets, not only for internal purposes, but to be servicing and supporting external uses, which in turn benefit local communities. So I can move on to the next slide, please. Thank you. The Infralink programme started 3 years ago, and it was to address a challenge which was as well a lack of engagement between public sector and mobile industry. This had come about because of a change in legislation, a change in how we viewed mobile infrastructure as being important and very important, and we wanted it, but actually at what cost? What kind of impact was that going to have on local authority use of assets? And it was also a challenge because of that kind of unknown world. A lot of local authorities are up to speed on the fibre side because of the last 10 years of public sector investment in the likes of superfast broadband and R100 programme, but mobile side had not been touched really as much by local authorities. So we set up the programme to look at how could we take best practice from across the UK and create tools and an approach that was sustainable and could apply across Scotland. A lot of the best cases and the best studies and best practices that had happened in the UK had happened in heavily urban areas in London and Birmingham, but we wanted to make sure they were applicable for smaller urban areas and also in rural geographies. So we started off by creating standard leases and agreements, which were essentially documents that had already been mediated between local authorities and the and industry, but we made sure they were applicable in Scotland, and again made sure they were relevant for different type of assets, so land, buildings and street furniture, and were applicable for rural and urban considerations, which are quite different. And they were really to be a go-to starting point, a credible starting point for negotiations, so that the parties could focus in on the real nuances of the deal and essentially build up efficiencies and speed to get things concluded. We then also put in place a payment guidance document, which was looking at the methodology of how do you arrive at the financial figure, again based upon legislation, but also the best value requirement that's required from local authorities. So we made sure that was built in and created a note to be able to help local authorities address that internal governance matter. And the final part was the connectivity marketplace. We were looking at data and how we could use assets and data to be engaging proactively with the industry to see which buildings, which assets could potentially be utilised for mobile infrastructure when rolling out in the area. Now, why are we all doing this? Well, the reason is 17% of Scotland is still not covered by any kind of provider for mobile sector, but also local authorities do get approached about existing leases. So you may have on your assets already a lease that is maybe coming to an end, but they're always looking for new ones as well, because there is to create more options for consumers in terms of different MNOs that the consumer can sign up to, improve connectivity in the area, which also helps with the services that the public sector can deliver using that good mobile connectivity. So it's really, I would say, not just for the new, it's for the existing position about mobile industry. And the aim is really to make it easier, more efficient, and to also be more proactive, so local authorities can actually engage on the front foot rather than just being a responsive party in those discussions with mobile industry. Move on to the next slide, please. So as Martyn mentioned, as part of the programme, we carried out the Infralink-Exchange pilot, which was part of this wider UK government programme, this Digital Connectivity Infrastructure Accelerator. And while it was really focused about, I suppose, small cells on, so the 5G New World small cells on street furniture, we wanted to test out our approach, utilising those tools that we mentioned, but also look at what other things that needed to be considered within a local authority to make that engagement easier. And we wanted to make sure, as I say, that it was something that was sustainable, not just within the pilot, but long term. We can move on to the next slide, please. So, as Martyn mentioned, we had quite a range of parties that were involved in this pilot, and this was really to see what was already available. So our engagement with the improvement service was a great way to identify the data sets that were already in existence, and it was great to hear Verity speak earlier about the squads and the data maturity programme, because that's exactly where we tapped into. We recognised that there was a lot of data about land, buildings, and street furniture that was already there and could be utilised in a different way that maybe it wasn't quite set up for. But actually, if we recognise that it had value, there could also be a desire to increase the quality of that and get consistency across the 4 local authorities that we engaged with in the Tay Cities areas, which had a really great variety of rural and urban areas, some which were more engaged on mobile connectivity and some were still a bit more new to the party. We displayed a lot of the data on the Cytena platform, which was an industry platform that was selected for this pilot. And we're, again, ability not to showcase the data, but look at the benefits, potential of lease management, of not just setting up the lease, but actually how the engagement with the tenant runs during the course of the lease. We, of course, engaged with industry during this pilot, a variety of mobile network operators, but also neutral host providers as well, which are the kind of newer players to the market who are focused just on getting the infrastructure on there, and then seeing which of the MNOs are keen to engage. It's a kind of different business model, but it was good to test this pilot out with them. And we worked with Digital Office, who brought a lot of insight in terms of how could we, in our development of this, build it in such a way so we could share it with other local authorities. And this led to the playbook, which I'll come on to in a moment, that to make sure in our delivery of the pilot, we were thinking ahead and thinking about those local authorities and how others could benefit and the things that they would be thinking if you were starting off this project. So while this looks like a kind of big project team, it was really trying to test things out, but do so in a sustainable way and see what we could reuse and repurpose from what the local authorities were already doing and already producing. Next slide, please. So that pilot was for 13 months and concluded in March earlier this year. I'm pleased to say that Tay Cities local authorities are continuing with the Cytena platform, and they're continuing with the internal transformation, really, in terms of how they engage with industry, but also how they manage inquiries that come in. And what we've done is put together all our learnings within the playbook. So this is in the standard Digital Office format, where we look at project initiation, look at stakeholders, look at strategic considerations, policies and processes. We also look at benefits framework, so identifying the objectives and how those are going to be measured. The playbook also looks at data and how we can identify the relevant data for the industry and how this can be improved in terms of quality. And so a lot of support there from the improvement service. We will be going into a little bit more detail on the project and the benefits of it at the virtual event we're holding on the 21st of June. That will be, you'll be hearing more from the local authorities themselves and from industry. And subsequent to that, we'll be holding some sessions in September where we'll be providing some kind of base knowledge and base information for all local authorities. So really the event on the 21st is kind of the start of our support for wide other local authorities in Scotland. So please, yourself or your colleagues, it'd be great to see you along there so you can hear more about the pilot and more about the Tay Cities experience. Thanks for having me today.
Thanks, Sarah. Very much appreciated coming along. Is there any questions for Sarah? Oh, there's a hand up already. Tommy.
Just a quick thing. That was Starlink ever considered into those links in the mix with all the other providers?
Sorry, say that again. Was who?
Starlink.
Starlink. No, this was really based upon mobile, so cellular infrastructure as opposed to satellite infrastructure. Okay. And hence why we dealt with the kind of the 4 MNOs, and that's really from promoting 4G coverage and 5G coverage. But the likes of Starlink are a player that's coming into the to the wireless market, and I think we're still in the early days as to how that's going to play out. But there's really big opportunity for the likes of satellite communication really helping those rural areas. So it is an area that SFT is looking at in conjunction with Scottish Government and Scotland 5G Centre. So happy if there's any questions about that kind of side of the technology to have a separate conversation, but it wasn't just as direct. It wasn't directly considered within this exercise.
Yeah, okay, I'm just asking. We're starting to use it quite extensively in Falkirk.
Yeah, I've heard. I mean, I was speaking with somebody yesterday at the digital transformation event, which Martyn yourself was speaking at, along with the minister, and I heard like Forestry and Land Scotland are also trialling it out, and so I think it's a real game changer in terms of what it can do for rural connectivity.
Thank you.
Sarah, a question in from the chat. How does this approach consider the digitally excluded?
Well, what it's trying to do is, as I say, put local authorities on the front foot to be identifying those areas where they know there is need either now or in the future, and giving the local authorities direct access to the mobile industry. We have the contacts, and actually sometimes knowing who to talk to is one of the key things. So what this helps is local authorities can be on that front foot, show the willingness that they do have leases, that they've got data available, that they've got process and strategies, and actually industry is looking for easy ways of engagement. They have a budget to spend at the start of the year. They're looking for target areas and where they can get rollout, get more customers. And so if local authorities are ready to engage and show them that ease of engagement and show them those potential sites then and locations, then that what we found in Tay Cities is it does turn heads on the industry side. So I think this would put things for digital exclusion really on the front foot, but more in the local authorities' hands.
Thanks, Sarah. Any other questions? Okay, I'm going to hand on to the section. Thanks very much, Sarah, for joining us again. That's fantastic. So the next section is the big idea, and if Lorraine was slagging off my photograph, Colin, you look so young there as well. I think it's before we started working together. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Colin and Emily Lynch at the Improvement Service to talk about data returns. So over to yourselves.
Thanks, Martyn. Hi, everyone. As you all know, and have heard about in the presentations and from Verity this morning, we've got a focus on helping councils to develop their own data maturity. And facilitating greater sharing and collaboration to accelerate data-driven approaches as part of councils' broader digital transformation journeys. And I guess alongside this, initially as a response to the demands of the COVID-19 pandemic, we worked with COSL and Improvement Service in partnership and on behalf of Solace to help the sector start to think about how we can better manage data returns. And we generate huge amounts of data that we make available to Scottish Government, Care Inspectorate, etc. And there's huge inefficiencies in how that data is collected. And we're probably not making as much use of that data as we could be ourselves. We almost like just throw it over the wall at the people requesting it. So we worked with College Improvement Service initially to develop a business case that set out how we could create a centralised view of all of the data returns such that we could better understand them and manage them better, understand the purpose of them, the frequency, improve the governance around the data returns in terms of how they're introduced, how we accept them into local government through to how they're retired, looking at opportunities to rationalise them a bit, where there might be duplication, and starting to look for opportunities to better orchestrate the collection of the data and to where possible to start to automate. So that was included in the business case. And I guess the other thing we want to do ultimately is to reduce the effort and reduce the lead time associated with the data being produced and it being useful. And as I said, you know, one of the most important aspects of this as well, though, is exploring how we as local government can make better use of all that data we generate for others. So the business case we produced, we on the back of that we took a joint paper to COSA leaders a while back, and Improvement Service offered to deliver the first phase of the project, which was to do the research, create that baseline position of all the data returns and start to develop some recommendations on what we would do for governance and for driving some of the technical improvements forward. Emily previously came along to the partnership forum, I think it was the last one, to give an overview of the work that was planned, and the aim today is for you to hear about how that work's gone, the key findings from that, and to hear from Emily and I what the next steps for that work will be. Emily.
Thank you, Colin, and yeah, a huge thank you for inviting us along again today just to share with you what we've been learning so far from the first phase of the project. So thank you for that. And there's definitely huge connections with some of the projects and developments that we've been hearing about today. So it's been great to be able to listen into that. So thank you. And we look forward to looking at how we can strengthen some of those links going forward in the next phase, which Colin will say a little bit more about. So in terms of the first phase of the project, as Colin was saying, it was really about us trying to develop a better understanding of what the current landscape looked like in terms of current data reporting requirement duties that councils had to respond to. So the first thing just to say is a huge thank you to all of our colleagues across many different councils who worked really closely with us to understand what data they were reporting, what processes they were using, what systems and technology they were using, and also to help us really explore and understand how that data is being currently used locally, their sense and perception and understanding of how that data is also being used nationally, and where they thought there could be opportunities for improvement. And as well as colleagues within councils, we also work really closely with colleagues within Scottish Government and also Public Health Scotland, who were incredibly helpful for this first phase of the project, to really help us to make sure that we built a very comprehensive picture of what the current data reporting landscape looked like. So in terms of some of the key findings, can I just check, Colin, can you see the slides? Have I shared them successfully? That's great. Thank you. So in terms of the current landscape, some of the key findings that we thought would be helpful to share with you, you can see the infographic there, and hopefully that's a helpful way of setting out some of these key findings. But if I just pull out a couple of themes that I think that are worth highlighting. The first is that the current reporting regime revealed a lack of focus on outcome improvement. So while there's a huge volume of data reporting going on, there is a limited focus on outcome improvement, and there is a hope that the new deal for local government perhaps might allow us to think differently around about how we work together across the different spheres of government to really focus in on how data reporting could actually drive that improvement in outcome. Also, in terms of the volume of reporting, you can see in the infographic there, we're talking about currently over 430 data collections each year that councils have to provide. And actually, when you break that down, you're talking over 20,000 separate data items, but actually given a lot of the data returns actually require individual level data, you're talking over 3 million data items. It's really a huge volume of data that's being generated. Our analysis of the data returns that we've been able to map shows that the rate at which data returns are being introduced has actually accelerated in recent years. Now, that's even when we adjust for the COVID effect. So even if we remove those returns that were specifically introduced during the pandemic, we're still seeing an increase or an acceleration in the rate of returns. So that's certainly something that we think is going to be an area of focus going forward. And also the feedback that we're getting both from our local colleagues in councils, but also nationally, is that sheer volume of data is making it really difficult both for us to have confidence in the quality of the data that's being returned, which then has an impact on our appetite and our confidence in how we use it. But it's also becoming increasingly difficult to actually extract insight from this, given the sheer volume of it. It's that sense of can't see the wood for the trees a lot of the time. We're also finding, as we look across our mapping, is that there is a real, again, it's perhaps not a surprise given the sheer volume, but there is a lack of oversight or awareness around about the data that's being collected, where there might be duplication or opportunities for better alignment or linking of data sets. You can see there that we've actually reported that there are at least 30 different requiring bodies. So yes, Scottish Government is the most significant of these, but they are not the only requiring body, as you all know, but there's over 30 different bodies. So it's perhaps no surprise that there really isn't a good oversight around about what data is currently being required from councils. So our mapping hopefully will provide a real opportunity here for us to start working together as a sector and with other parts of the public sector to really look at, well, where is there duplication? Where are these opportunities for alignment? Related to that, I think, is that often data is being requested without sufficient clarity around the purpose for this data. So yes, we know that a lot of the data that's being requested is being requested to support official statistics and the requirement to publish data. But beyond this, there is a lack of clarity around about to what extent that data is then actually used to inform resourcing decisions and policy decisions. And that's both at a national level, but also at a local level. In terms of the processes and systems that were being used, both locally to produce and generate and return the data, but also nationally to collect the data, the mapping revealed a real lack of progress towards automation. And so the vast majority of data that's being collected is still using predominantly manual processes, including, for example, attaching an Excel file to an email. So there are some developments in terms of some utilisation of things like Microsoft Forms, for example. We know that CMIS has, you know, a good system set up. ProcExZ shows some progress in terms of some streamlining and some automated developments. But again, across the sheer landscape across the volume of data returns, the predominant approach is still manual. And then when we worked closely with councils, we did a really helpful deep dive with councils to really better understand what are the processes and systems involved at a council level. And I guess what we were finding from our colleagues is that we've still not managed to crack that one button reporting that we all are, trying to work towards, where the request comes in, we press a button in our data management system, our case management system, and the data is generated. We're finding that there's just a huge amount of resource being required in order to generate the data that is requested. So even where we have invested significant amounts of resource into our management systems, there's still a significant amount of manual effort required to extract and transform and prepare that data to meet the reporting templates. But also one of the biggest issues that we were finding from our discussions with colleagues is that at that point, when the data is being extracted, that's really where they were determining lots of data quality issues and data completeness issues. And so therefore, the validation and quality assurance within councils was actually one of the things that was taking the biggest amount of time and effort. So again, what we're finding is that the systems and processes were not supporting councils to deliver a streamlined provision of data. And so there's definitely opportunities there for greater orchestration, as Colin was saying, to look at our systems architecture, to look at how the data flows through our system, to look at how we improve the quality and implement data standards around about the data that we're collecting, to ultimately ensure that it provides greater value to local government, to individual councils. So those are some of the key findings. Another graphic that we have here, again, hopefully just gives you a sense of the volume, and what you can see is a significant volume in March, June, September and December. And I think what that shows is an increase in quarterly reporting. So while in some senses this is to be welcomed because it shows that we're moving towards a more timely reporting of data, which obviously has its uses, it also increases the burden on councils. So if we look then at what the recommendations were that have emerged from this first phase of the project, the first is around about that local government and Scottish Government should use this new deal for local government and the underpinning partnership agreement to ensure that any reporting that is agreed to be, that is required, should focus on improvement in outcomes. And that we should ensure that we take account of the existing data reporting and consider streamlining and reducing where possible. So I think it's around about how do we coalesce around about these shared priorities to identify the existing reporting that is useful in terms of helping us understand and demonstrate and drive improvement in these priorities, but also that allows us to have that conversation around about where is there reporting that doesn't support this, that we can stand down, that we can reduce. So I think that has to be one of the focuses for going forward. So in order to do this, we need to start to look at how we build trust. We need to develop a protocol and governance mechanism around this, which again will be part of that new partnership agreement and will include an online register of returns, which we're already starting to look at how we do that. As I say, we need to make that commitment to reduce the overall volume of data reporting. We need to support greater use and reuse of the collected data, and also work with the regulatory bodies to review the extent to which the CRERA recommendations have in fact been implemented, or what more do we need to do. So other recommendations are around about the IS COSLA and the Digital Office, working with Scottish Government to look at what are the opportunities for how we improve the national coordination, orchestration, standardisation and hopefully automation around about the data that is collected to try and reduce that burden for councils. And then also that the IS COSLA and the Digital Office work with councils to prioritise improvements in data quality and data standards, which, as I say, is definitely key to ensuring that the data that's being produced generates greater value for councils, which it ultimately has to be one of our key aims here. So if I just hand over to Colin now, you'll just talk a bit about the next steps in this project.
Yeah, thanks, Emily. In terms of those recommendations, Emily and I are now working together to scope out the next phase of the project. We had a session on it yesterday, in fact. But the way that we want to organise that work for the next phase is through 4 work streams. And the first one will be about the governance, establishing the governance to manage the life cycle of data returns, to look for those opportunities to rationalise the data returns where applicable, and as Emily said, establishing some form of online register of data returns where everybody has access to the list of all the data returns that local government generates, and some metadata about that in terms of the frequencies and who they're for and what the purpose is, and these sorts of things. And from that, we can then use that to start to drive the rationalisation and the improved governance around data returns. The second work stream, it has a focus on the last point in Emily's previous slide, which is about standards and quality. One of the ways in which we will drive that forward is through a new board that the Digital Office and Improvement Services have worked together to establish, called the Local Government Data Standards Board. And the aim of that board, really, it's not been set up for this project specifically. It's something that we've recognised there's increasing demand for data standards to improve interoperability, and to underpin the common platforms agenda. And there's a couple of strategies, the health and care data strategy that talks about data standards. There's the digital planning data strategy that's underway that also talks about data standards. So looking to establish this anyway, and we have established the board, sorry, but we want to start to drive some of the improvements we need for data returns through that form, because the data standards and qualities aren't unique to data returns. They're common challenges that we face in the sector. And the final work stream will look at how we could use technology to reduce the burden and improve the quality of the data returns as well. And there's kind of 2 parts to that, 2 proof of concepts that we would like to develop. One would be how to use technology to better orchestrate manual data returns. So it's recognising that automating data collection is a big job that's going to take years, but what can we do in the meantime to better orchestrate and better coordinate the collection of data? And then the second part will start to explore, the second proof concept will be to start to explore how we could automate, but there's a lot of architectural considerations required for that. So there'll be a bit of work with the Digital Assurance Board looking at the technical options for how we could do that in a scalable and sustainable manner as well, which would feed into the business case. So that hopefully from Emily and myself gives you an overview of the kind of results of the work to date and the next steps. Martyn.
Thank you to both of you for that comprehensive update on the data returns. Is there any questions for the gruesome twosome? Jane.
Thanks, yeah, really, really interesting, really helpful. And I think, the starting point of even having that mapping of the demands that are made on local government to provide data to so many different places. I mean, I'm delighted to see the mention of the word creator, because I think everybody's totally forgotten about that. But I just want to say, enormous piece of work. And although this is not going to be easy, I think it's really helpful to set out a set of directions for us as local government to take forward, but also to see how in partnership everybody can work together with Scottish Government to try and manage this better. So just thank you.
Thank you to you. John.
Is that John Finn?
John Finn, yes.
Thanks. As someone who struggled with both the LFR and the POBI return, this is sort of music to my ears. And I mean, it's interesting that those two forms have both been reviewed recently, but the opportunity to actually amalgamate the forms and do away with one of them has not been taken, which I think is a shame. I was going to make the point, I remember a while ago, some time ago, going to America, and you fill in the immigration form, and at the bottom of the form there was a few sentences that and it was some act in America where they request information from where the government requests information, they actually have to estimate how long it will take to complete that information, what the cost will be, and how it will be used. And I just thought that might be quite a useful model to include within the New Deal for local government, because I think quite often that does get lost. And it's a bit like with the FOI, where you can say this is an unreasonable request because of cost or complexity. Yeah, I just thought I'd make that observation.
Thank you, John. Emily.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, John. It's a really great suggestion, and one that I think would be incredibly helpful. It might be of interest to know that our understanding is that when Scottish Government, as one of the collecting bodies, do decide to introduce a new data return, they are actually asked to assess the burden on councils, and that was part of the metadata that we tried to collect when we did this mapping, where we asked to what extent that assessment had been done. Now, I should just say that we didn't actually get any data on that. So I think that could be an area that we want to explore further, because I think there is an understanding that that should be part of any governance and any decision making in terms of introducing new returns. So thank you.
Any last questions? Because we're a wee bit behind time now. Any other questions? Okay, thanks, Emily and Colin. So as we're slightly behind time, I'm going to ask for a short break of 5 minutes, coming back at 11:55. And then we'll go into the last couple of final sections, which will be condensed and shortened to the point. So back at 11:55, if that's okay with everybody. See you soon. Common solutions is the kind of next topic we're going to go through this afternoon. So we work in complexity, the landscape, multiple service areas, and with numerous stakeholders, as you all are well aware. Resources continually being reviewed, reduced, or reallocated, and yet we're still expected to deliver and achieve the same outcomes. It's certainly not an easy task, but there are other ways that we can support each other to maximise the efficiencies. So I will now hand over to Colin Birchenall again, who will provide you with an update on some of the common solutions. Common solution initiatives that are in progress. Put my teeth back in. So over to you, Colin.
Thanks, Martyn. So I just wanted to give you an update on the progress that's being made across the Common Solutions agenda. So firstly, the context, just as a reminder, Common Solutions is one of the top 4 priorities that have been set by our joint leadership board for the digital strategy. So that's been agreed by a minister. It was actually Kate Forbes at the time, and the COSLA spokesperson for resources. When we spoke to you about your priorities for the digital office, when we were reshaping the last business plan, and we heard loud and clear from yourselves that you wanted to see more from us on driving the Common Solutions agenda. The Audit Scotland report on digital progress in local government highlighted a number of observations related to challenges for Common Solutions. So ministers and elected members have said it's a priority. Scottish Government have said it's a priority. Audit Scotland have said it's a priority, and you've said it's a priority. So I think it's safe to say that Common Solutions is a priority for us all. But it's hard, yeah. The fundamental implications that we need to unpick. And at the last partnership forum, we explored this with you. We got your thoughts on what the opportunities might be and what the challenges are that we would need to overcome. So using that content, we recently worked with Scottish Government on a joint positioning paper that set out some clear definitions on what we mean in terms of common frameworks, common platforms, common components, common solutions. All these terms were being thrown around, but inconsistently, and to drive the agenda, we need clarity. So the paper starts to set out that, and we can start to use those terms consistently across the public sector. It set out the benefits that we believe we could achieve from the approach in terms of reducing operational costs, reducing duplicative investment, improving the customer experience, ability to integrate and provide more holistic services across the public sector, reduce the likelihood of cyber attack by consolidating cyber defences, free up staff for higher value roles and enabling greater innovation. But we also set out the barriers that we need to overcome and the implications of this. So we set out, the need to balance national and local priorities, the transparency we need from across organisations in terms of their current estates and planned investments, alignment of contract life cycles, commitment to standards, ability to realise the benefits, etc. And we set out, as I say, we set out some implication in terms of greater sponsorship, the collaboration that's going to be needed, the commitment to standards, the investment that will be needed, and the governance that would need to support all of this. The paper was accepted, widely well received by the joint board, and we now plan to take that or an evolved version of that paper to Solace and to COSLA leaders. Councillor Katie Hagman, the COSLA spokesperson for resources in particular, is keen to take something to leaders on this. The paper that we developed with Scottish Government is available to you on our SharePoint site already. But we're not waiting for permission here. There's plenty we can be getting on with together with Scottish Government. We've got a focus on the implications, enabling infrastructure, and within local government, there's a number of things we've done. We've relaunched the local government reference architecture. We've also got an enterprise architect joining the team from the 3rd of July to help us drive that and the common solutions agenda forward. From a digital assurance perspective, we're increasing the focus on technology standards because we recognise that's a dependency. The data standards board that I mentioned will also help us to put in place data standards we might need to support common approaches, common solutions. And we have a workshop next week with Scottish Government actually to talk about some of the enabling infrastructure that might be required in terms of cataloguing solutions and services and making them more discoverable and accessible and usable, etc. And obviously key to all of this is STAM. We need that we need the data, but we also want to target the application of this and the use of this to support the projects that I'm going to mention. There are a number of common practical common solutions that are being developed at the moment. So, we've got like the policy and leadership steer here. We've kind of got the enabling infrastructure that I've talked about, but there's some real things we can be doing and are doing. So there's the evolution and development of the existing common solutions that we have in local government, My Job Scotland, Consul from COSLA, CMIS, and then from Improvement Service, the likes of the Spatial Data Hub, myaccount, etc. There's work underway in Scottish Government and health around common platforms and digital components we can make use of, and we'll continue to be engaged with that so that local government can benefit from that. But within local government, there's a number of initiatives that I want to highlight, and we want to highlight through this session, that are really beginning to, I guess, build our confidence that this is achievable and it's not that scary. So Microsoft 365 collaboration and the licensing of Microsoft 365, the learning management proposal that you heard from Verity earlier. We have the current procurement of the shared alarm receiving centre for telecare, a planned procurement for a shared security operations centre. There's the data returns platform that Emily and I talked about in the last session. We Census have undertaken some work for us to explore the feasibility of establishing a data exchange platform for IoT data, for real-time data. And then we've got funding from Scottish Government to explore the feasibility of improving the integration and consolidation of case management for planning as part of the digital planning programme. We've got work underway undertaking the review of that, and we're just about to embark on some work on non-domestic rates for Scottish Government as well. So yeah, this is a tough nut to crack, but we've got the political support, we've got the clear definition of what it is and what it means. We've put in place some foundations and working with Scottish Government to see what else we can do in the foundation layer. And as a partnership, we're already delivering. There's already a number of projects that I've highlighted there that are going to demonstrate the value from this approach. But to do this, we have to be confident, and we have to treat this like a shared endeavour. So what we want to do in the next 2 sessions is to give you an update on some of the work that's underway. So we're going to hear from Andy Campbell from Improvement Service, who's going to give us an update on myaccount. We're going to hear from Monika about the work that she's been leading with Scottish Government and Health on Microsoft 365 collaboration. And then the subsequent session, we're going to hear from Hugh Carr from Scotland Excel about some of the collaborative procurement that's underway or planned, including Microsoft 365 licensing, the shared alarm receiving centre and the shared operations centre. Hopefully that's a reasonable introduction. I'll hand back to Martyn in order to introduce the next speakers.
So without further ado, because again, short of time, and I want to make sure we've covered everything because there's tons to get through still in the next half an hour. Andy Campbell from Improvement Service is going to give us an update about myaccount. So over to you, Andy.
No, that's that. Thank you, Martyn. Hopefully you can see the slides that I'm just sharing.
Yep, it's come up.
Perfect. So, yeah, thanks for the introduction, Martyn. So I'm Andy Campbell, I'm the Head Digital Public Services at the Improvement Service, and I'm just going to take a few minutes just to give you an update on where we are with myaccount. A lot of people probably be aware of myaccount, may have a myaccount. It was launched back in 2014, but since then the service has grown significantly, and over the years there's been a lot of new additional features and functionality that have been added to the platform that we know that not all organisations may be aware of. So hopefully the next few minutes will give you an update in terms of where things are at, and there may be some new features and functionality that are within the myaccount service that may be able to be applied to your services to help you with your own digital agenda. So I know I could talk for hours on this, Martyn, but I know you've asked for it to be short and succinct, so I'll look to try and get through this quite quickly. So what is myaccount? So myaccount at its core is a single sign-on service that enables people to use that one account to access multiple services within an organisation and multiple services across the different organisations. For us, we offer myaccount as a toolkit to organisations, and so it can be implemented to respond to different requirements that an organisation has. And that's been one of the big developments over the years, where we've been able to provide that flexibility that is not just a one-size-fits-all, but that toolkit can be deployed to enable local authorities and other organisations to deploy to meet their own requirements. And that will include being able to use services that we've got for authentication and also identity verification. So what we do is we promote myaccount now as a toolkit. Before it was heavily promoted as a single sign-on service, and that's still at the core of what the platform is able to do. Enables people to use that one account to access multiple different services. But over the years, what we've been able to do is add more functionality to the toolkit, and that can be deployed by organisations to meet their different needs. So, for example, we've got authentication services, so a variety of different options that organisations can switch on. And they can be deployed at either a system level or at a specific service level to add an additional layer of security. We've also been able to grow the suite of identity verification tools that we've got available, and they can be provided in a number of different ways for organisations to use. It can be gated, so if you don't want anyone to access a certain service unless they're verified, we can gate users at that point and then take them through the journey to get verified. Or at a certain point within the customer journey, the organisation could then trigger for the user to be pushed out to myaccount to then go through that process. It just provides a much more cleaner customer journey for the user. We've also got additional services that support channel shifts. So we've got abilities, we've got a suite of APIs that can be consumed, where you've got users who are maybe attending a local authority office, or they're contacting the council by phone, and it allows the APIs to be used to create a myaccount on behalf of that user, so they can then transact online in the future. And in addition to that, we've also got our data integrity services. So again, it's a suite of APIs that can be deployed to help local authorities maintain their data integrity. If there is changes in the data, it can be deployed across the other back office systems. And we've also got other services which we can provide updates from the NHSCR, such as death notifications, which is really an important service that allows that notification to be sent to the local authority to update systems to prevent correspondence going out to somebody who's been deceased. But it could also be used to detect and prevent fraud if people are trying to access services on behalf of someone that's been deceased. So in terms of who's using the service, my account's been used by 40 organisations, so all 32 local authorities use the service. It's also used by other national platforms such as My Diabetes My Way, Young Scot Membership Platform, NHS Lothian, Social Security Scotland, and we've got Get Your NEC and Parents Portal. Within all the 32 local authorities, 27 local authorities have got my account integrated to at least one back office system, but others have multiple integrations. And over the years, what we've been able to do is build up a big and growing list of different suppliers and systems that we've integrated with. And what we're now finding that as local authorities quite often use the same systems as others, when we've got a supplier that's already integrated with my account, it's a much quicker process for another authority to onboard, as the suppliers are used to the system and they know what is required to be able to integrate. At the back end of last year, we reached a big milestone in terms of 2 million My Account accounts. And then since then, the uptake has continued to increase, where we've got just under 2.2 million accounts, which equates to actually 44% of the Scottish eligible population. So you can be 12 plus to get a My Account. So 44% of all those within Scotland age 12 plus have a My Account, which is a phenomenal number to be able to meet. But we're not always looking at the account holders in itself. What we're keen to be looking at is that people don't just have a My Account, but they're actually using the My Account, and they're using it again and again. And what we've been able to see is over the years since the service was launched back in 2014, the growth of the My Account usage has been staggering, and specifically in the last couple of years, with more organisations onboarding My Account and using it for more and more on online services, the usage of My Account has increased significantly. So we're not only seeing more people sign up, but we're actually seeing people use the service more and more. And what we're forecasting this year is for 16.5 million authentication requests, and that's just based on the services that we've got and doesn't include any brand new services that we may be able to onboard. A couple of examples of also where My Account services are being deployed. So Get Your NEC, you may be aware of. So that's an online platform that the Improvement Service also manage and operate. And we provide that service on behalf of all 32 local authorities to allow citizens to apply for national entitlement cards. So that's your over 60s bus pass, disabled concessionary travel, young persons free bus travel, or the Young Scot card. So the platform uses My Account, its authentication and identity verification services to enable people to apply. And so they will go through the process to verify their identity and meet other certain conditions, including those that are required by the Proof of Age Standard Scheme. And the platform is accredited for pass in terms of the IDV. And since 2020, July 2020, 750,000 applications have been facilitated through the platform. And without this platform, these applications would have gone to local authorities. So it's helped to direct a lot of traffic away from the local authority frontline offices. And in the course of that, we've been able to verify just under 500,000 applicants through that process to enable them to get access to a variety of concessions, including concessionary travel. In addition to that, we've also got integration with ParentsPortal.Scot. Again, it's another platform the Improvement Service manages, which is a platform that provides a suite of transactional and information services for parents to transact on behalf of their child. We've got the platform integrated not only with My Account, but My Account is integrated with the SEMA system. And since its launch, we've got 15 local authorities that have signed up to use the service, with more currently onboarding. So we've got 1,303 schools that are signed up, and a growing number of parents and children that are getting linked to the service. We've also got a couple of new identity verification services coming soon. Our supplier was one of the first in the UK to get certified under the Digital Identity and Attributes Trust Framework to be able to provide online right to work, right to rent and criminal records checks. And what we've been doing was working with them to implement their services to add to the My Account toolkit. And what we were able to do is provide additional services that not only meet GPG 44, but meet GPG 45. We're currently working with My Job Scotland to be able to launch a right to work service via My Account, and that will enable preferred candidates who have gone through the My Job Scotland process to be sent an email and to then go through the process to do the right to work checks online, and that avoids them having to travel to an office to provide all the documentation or send it in the post. So it's a much more convenient process for the for the preferred candidate, and it's also a far quicker process for local authorities, for example, to use. So that service is currently just going through its final bits of testing with My Job Scotland, and it'll be a service that'll be available to all different users of the service. So, acutely aware of running out of time, just one last shameless plug. So my account is part of a wider portfolio of different products and services within the Digital Public Services team. So if anyone has any questions or would like to know more about any of the products that are on the screen, then please just get in contact by email, and I'll be able to put you in touch with the person that's most suitable to follow up. I can take questions, Martyn, but
thanks,
Andy. We're running out of time.
Whistle stop tour. Is there any questions for Andy? I think it's actually one in the chat, Lawrence, from Lawrence Hay. Are there plans for a shared front office? I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, Martyn, I was just going to come in on that. I was replying via chat, but yeah, I mean, we'll be doing some further work to evaluate demand for common solutions. We've got the local government reference architecture wants to use to try and kind of map out where the opportunities will be. And that will be a combination of understanding the demand, the value, and also complexity. I guess I instinctively have got a bit of a concern about CRM, workforce management, ERP, because of the variability in terms of how we all operate. And sometimes those sorts of systems are hard enough to implement in one council, let alone multiple councils. But, you know, I think that'll be in the mix, but there's no current plans for that.
Okay, cool. So marching on, the next piece is over to, I think it's Monika next, isn't it? Monika to give us an update on the National M365 Cross Collaboration Programme. So over to Monika.
Thanks, Martyn. Hi, everyone. If we haven't worked together before, my name is Monika. I'm a Senior Project Manager for the Digital Office, and I'm here today to tell you about the National M365 Cross Organization Collaboration Programme. Cal, can you move us to the next slide, please? Thank you. Right, so in June last year, we started a test of change with 9 organizations. There were 6 councils and their respective health boards, and the test of change was aimed at enabling easier ways for health and care staff to collaborate whilst building on the desire to make better use of M365, which is a technology that was already in place. To support the delivery of the test of change, there was a short life working group that was set up and included representatives from various organizations, such as Scottish Government, Digital Office, COSLA, NHS, heads of service of health and social care partnerships, as well as information governance security colleagues. So the scope of the testing of change was intentionally narrow. It was very limited to Outlook calendar availability sharing and Teams federation. And that was done on purpose so that it can give us a chance to deliver this by the end of October last year. The benefits that we were aiming for included improved ease of communication between local government and NHS teams, easier and quicker access to relevant people to support decision-making and issue resolution, providing cross-organizational staff with streamlined communication channels in a secure environment, and to enable easier and quicker communication between cross-organizational staff, removing the need for staff to be in the same place, and reducing the administrative burden and introducing more efficiency. So in October last year, the test of change was successful, and we had 9 organizations fully connected. We held a reflective session, which generated a lot of valuable learnings that we then carried forward. And some of that included the creation of a set of documents, which we call Welcome Pack, which is just kind of a collection of detailed documents to support every organization going through the same change process. Given the success of the test of change, a national program was then introduced in December 2022 to further look at opportunities to streamline communication and collaboration between local government and the NHS Scotland. So over the past few months, while we have kind of continued to support the nationwide rollout of this Teams Federation and calendar availability sharing between local government and the NHS Scotland, the core team has been working on defining the priorities and the roadmap for the national programme. You see on the slide in front of you, we have 3 phases fully defined at this point in time. Phase 1 is focusing on getting all local authorities connected to NHS Scotland by enabling them to share calendar availability. We're talking just free busy at the moment, and also providing them with the ability to communicate via Teams. Phase 2 is focusing on laying the groundwork for enabling document sharing and building staff confidence in using M365 as collaborative tool. And phase 3 is focusing on implementing document sharing between local government and the NHS, starting with a pilot and also starting to look at possibilities for savings by looking at how we can better kind of use M365 as a shared platform for this. So now we've kind of covered the high-level intentions of the program. Cal, can you move us to the next slide? And we're going to have a look at the initiatives under each phase. Thanks, Cal. So right now we are focusing on phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 1 is ongoing and is covering, as I mentioned, the nationwide implementation of Teams Federation and calendar availability sharing. While phase 2, kind of the focus here is, again, laying the groundwork for document sharing. And in order to do that, we'll be looking at developing the prerequisites and common guidance for how to share non-sensitive information first, then moving over to developing the prerequisites and common guidance for how to share sensitive information. And the scope of this is, again, in information sharing between NHS and local authorities in Scotland. On the side of building confidence in staff in using M365 as a common platform, we're going to be working to provide all staff in local authorities with access to the Skills Hub. The Skills Hub is a training platform that was developed and hosted at NES, and it features training specific to M365 that's kept evergreen and changing as the technology evolves and as the need of the public sector evolve with it as well. We're also going to be looking at establishing cross-organization support communities and developing kind of a series of facilitated M365 training opportunities that are going to be open to the staff in all health boards and local authorities as well. In phase 3, as I mentioned before, we're going to be looking to implement document sharing between all local authorities and health boards, territorial health boards, and we're also going to be looking to identify the opportunities for savings when it comes to reducing the number of devices that staff need to be able to carry out their day-to-day duties effectively, looking at reducing the number of M365 licenses that are required, and further exploring opportunities to better connect health and care organizational teams and the systems they use. So we've been talking about kind of the high-level overview, the individual initiatives, but let's have a look at where we're at now. Cal, could you move us to the next slide, please? Thank you. So I mentioned before that we do want to see all 32 councils connected to the NHS and being able to share calendar availability to ease kind of the collaboration between health and care staff and also be able to communicate via Teams. Our target is to see all 32 councils able to do that. Right now we're almost halfway there. We've got 14 councils already live with that functionality. We've got 9 in progress, and we've got another 9 set of 9 that are not currently participating, either due to local pressures or because they're just not in a position to do that at this point in time. Cal, can you move us to the next slide, please? Thank you. So I also wanted to touch a little bit on the benefits that we've seen so far today. Given that kind of the change in functionality was fairly small, it was a really great to hear that staff have seen significant improvements in the way they're working. And a few things to highlight here is that staff found it much easier to make decisions more efficiently, got answers much quicker because they were able to get to the right person in a faster and easier way, and were able to build better relationships with their teammates. And those results here, they're based on a survey that we submitted to all of our user base after the test of change was completed. And this is the feedback that we got directly from the users that have been using this functionality. Now, could you move forward, please? Thank you. So what are the next steps here? What's happening next? as a national team, we're going to continue to support all councils going through this wider rollout of phase 1 until we see everyone live with that. And as part of phase 2, we are just starting to kick this off formally now. The next steps are we're going to issue a briefing to our chief officers to let them know what's coming next. We are meeting with all of the participating organizations in phase 1 tomorrow to brief them on the next steps for the program. After that, we'll be looking to identify the organizations that want to get involved in the next stage of the process, form working groups, and start talking to users to collect the kind of the information required from them. But what does that mean for you? Cal, can you move to the next slide, please? So if any of the initiatives I was talking about today under phase 2 or 3 sound like they would be beneficial for your organization to be on board with, by all means, please get in touch with your senior management team. As part of our executive briefing, we'll be asking chief officers to nominate an executive lead in their organization if they wanted to get on board with the activities in this program. And also just give us a shout. You have the contact details for the core national team on the program on the screen just now. That includes me, Rachel in Scottish Government, and Sam in our team as well. So give us a shout. Let us know that you would like to be involved. Let's have a conversation how we can make that happen. So yeah, I was rambling a little bit fast through this given the time, but thanks everyone. And Martyn, over to you.
No, thanks, Monika. Just conscious of time. So if you've got any questions for Monika, please put them into the chat and we'll answer them, or get in contact with Monika, Sam, or Rachel, who are displayed on the screen just now as well, would be much appreciated. Intend to take that forward. So the next part, the man that leads no or very little introduction, Kyle, if you can move on the slides, is Hugh Carr from Scotland Excel. I mean, I don't know if you were at the start when Lorraine was slagging off my photograph, Hugh. I'm saying nothing about you as my friend. So over to yourself to give us an update about collaborative procurements. Hugh.
So thank you, Martyn. For those that I haven't met, Hugh Carr, Director of Strategic Procurement Scotland Excel. So wanted to give you an update just on one or two areas that you've heard a bit about so far. So start off with 365. So Monika's talked about the programme. One of the things that we wanted to do was run an aggregated exercise. So we've been trying to do this for quite some time. So between the digital office and ourselves at Scotland Excel, we worked with Crown Commercial Services. One of the biggest challenges you get running any kind of aggregation is trying to understand what the demand profile's like. So based on feedback that we got, we were able to map out for those councils that had licences expiring in the first half of this year up until the end of June. We were able to understand what the requirements were, both in terms of the types of licences and the volume. We worked with Crown Commercial on this. They ran an aggregated exercise based on their framework, and the return was pretty good. So based on a roughly £21 million spend over 3 years, we saved just over 5% based on the mini competition that they ran. So just over £1 million over the 3-year term, which was certainly a good outcome and one that we were happy with. It is our intention to run another aggregation based on the licences that are expiring later on in the year. So we'll be in touch regarding that, but it's really, I think we are certainly keen to demonstrate the benefit of what we delivered in the first exercise so that we can use that going forward. Shared Alarm Receiving Centre. This was a challenging project, certainly from a procurement point of view. The biggest challenge that we had was trying to convert what was a very comprehensive technical spec into something that we could embed into a tender document, and crucially one that we could evaluate consistently. So we went to market, we ran its full term. It's under evaluation at the minute, so it's a live tender exercise. So therefore, I can't say too much about it other than a couple of headlines that are worth sharing. We had 5 offers. There are 5 offers under evaluation. When we put it to market, we put a forecast value of £15 million over the maximum 6-year term, and we remain optimistic that we will begin contract award over the course of the summer, ready for utilisation at the back end of the summer in early August, and it's on plan to do that. The final thing I just wanted to mention briefly is that there's been talk for a wee while about running some form of collaborative exercise for a security operating centre. Some of you may have seen a quick survey that came out from one of our team, Nick Hyde. We have had some returns from the information requested. We really need more to understand the size of the opportunity that we can take to market. If you have seen it but haven't completed it, I would urge you to do so. It's a one-pager, and we're just trying to get visibility of what's already in place, when it expires, what your requirements are, so that we can run that exercise. It was always intended to run after Digital Arc, primarily because we wanted to ensure that we had a robust set of terms and conditions that we could use. I'm pretty confident that is indeed the case. So we'll let the Digital Arc evaluation conclude and proceed to contract award, and we'll embed the same terms and conditions, which is appropriate to do so. So if you haven't already completed it, I would encourage you to do so, and subject to sufficient demand and volume, we will take that to market. So Martyn, that's all I wanted to say. I know you're running short of time. I've kept it short.
Thank you.
That works.
If you can put any questions into the chat. Sorry, John, I know you got your hand up. We'll get them answered. If that's all right, apologies.
Or even contact me directly, Martyn. I'm happy if anyone wants to contact me directly.
The Security Operations Centre is of great great insight, because there was 19 councils had shown an interest in this. So please get in contact with Hugh and help Nick and the team with just gathering that evidence, so that we can actually start to move that forward and save you all some money. You know, based on the fact that we were able to save, you know, circa £1 million for Microsoft 365. Unfortunately, we're running out of time, so I'm going to have to leave off in the digital telecare update. But what we will do is send out the slides with an option for those of you who are interested. If you're wanting a half an hour, I've just negotiated behind the scene with David. If you want a half an hour briefing on that one, we'll get that set up in the next couple of weeks before holiday season, for all those interested about digital telecare, because there's a phenomenal large amount of work, such as the Shared Alarm Receiving Centre, which the team have been pouring over. I think it's about 500,000 words in the last couple of weeks, to try and get to that final stage of the procurement exercise with Hugh and Scotland Excel. So my closing remarks and final kind of next steps, hopefully from today, the variety of projects and work streams showcased, you can appreciate some of the opportunities and some of the challenges that we've got against the digital strategy and aligning to local government priorities. As a collective, the digital partnership, we can explore the challenges, build up on the lessons, and move forward as a collaborative to make these big ideas a reality. So if you haven't already engaged with us for digital maturity, the redesigned, get in contact with us. As I said, some of the councils start going through their second one, which has been really insightful. So please have a chat with Verity about that. Part of the national training platform, Discovery is mapping the learning, and you know, the management systems, the content piece, again, help us out with that. And fundamentally, we've still got STAMP in play, the Scottish Technical Asset Management Platform. And I know there's several councils haven't updated that for a while. Some of you haven't done at all. But to order to look at things like legal management systems, or that was in the chat earlier on, or looking at, you know, different things, finance systems, different apps, etc., please get involved with us to try and help you to move forward with collaborative procurements, but also common solutions too. So if you haven't been involved in some of the initiatives, you want to learn more, get in contact with the team. But all I'm going to say now is thank you for attending today. Thanks for bearing with us for a couple of minutes over and dropping poor David, who's got all dressed up and got new glasses specifically for today. So thanks everyone who's contributed. Thanks to all of you for attending, and hopefully we will see you all soon. Thanks so much.